once again, as always, Miguel Magallon! And as always, President, Founder, CEO of Magallon Entertainment! Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Let me say this real quick. If you don't know who that is, you don't know who Kate Bush is, it's because you're a little motherfucker. You ain't been around long enough. I feel like the only ones who are actually going to appreciate that song are people over the age of 40 and millennials and Gen Zs that have been addicted to Stranger Things since season 1. I got to tell you, that is a good-ass show, man. I love Stranger Things. I've seen every season, 1, 2, 3, just got done seeing season 4. Man, that's just the shit. I don't know what it is about it, guys. I really don't. But Stranger Things, for those of you guys who've been watching it on Netflix and you guys seen all the seasons, it's just something about that show. I don't know really what it is. You know, it's just something about it. It's just, I don't know. I want to say it's different because I feel like I've seen shows like that before, especially in my past, in my childhood. So I don't want to say it's different, but it's just, I don't know, there's something about it, man. I don't know what it is, but Stranger Things, man, I fucking love that show. You know, I like the cast. I like what it's about. It's different. You know what I mean? It's just, I like the show. I gotta say, I like the show. I like the throwback to the 80s. You know what I mean? Like, I just, you know, sometimes I watch like shows or movies that are based like in the 70s or 80s, and I watch it and I just kind of be like, doesn't really feel like it was all that, you know what I mean? But then there are other shows and other movies, you know, case in point Stranger Things, where you watch it and again it's based in the 70s and the 80s or the 90s, right? And then you watch it and it just, I don't know, they do a great job of bringing you like a blast from the past, you know what I mean? Like there are certain shows that are based in the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, and you watch them, and you're like, yo, man, like, that really brought back a lot of memories. I remember that shit, man. Like, it really hits home to you. Like, it just gives you like it brings back a lot of memories, brings back a lot of flashbacks. It hits a part of your past that you almost forgot about. But when you start watching movies, you know, again, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, when you watch that shit, it really brings back so many memories, so many emotions, so many different points in your life that you almost completely forgot about. You know what I mean? And it hits different, you know? So, like I said, some movies and some shows do a really shitty job and you're just kind of like, you know what I mean? Wasn't that great. But then other ones like Stranger Things or, Boys in the Hood, when they did the remix, like Straight Outta Compton. I don't know if you guys saw that one, the new Straight Outta Compton that came out a couple years ago. I thought that was like a really good movie that reflected like 90s and 90s rap and hip hop and the 80s and things like that. You know, like I said, certain movies can do it. Certain shows can do it, right? And I think on Netflix and on Hulu, there's a lot of shows that, like I said, they're based on the 80s, 70s, 90s, whatever the case is. And they do a really great job of just, you know, not only entertaining you, but, you know, making you feel like the 70s, 80s, 90s was a part of history that you wish you were a part of, or you wish you were alive, you know, to see, or that, you know, you could have been in, you know? And I think certain shows and certain movies do a really great job of that, and I think Stranger Things is one of those. Like I said, I don't know what it is about it. It just, I don't know. You know what it really reminds me of, guys? I don't know if you guys, you know, I know a lot of you guys are young and shit, but there used to be the show back in the day, and I'm talking like back in the day. Like, you have to be a real 80s, 90s baby to remember this fucking show, but there was a show way back then. It was called Goosebumps. I don't know if you guys remember Goosebumps, but man, there used to be a show called Goosebumps that was, again, it was like based in the 80s and 90s. I remember watching that, you know, growing up and thinking to myself like, yo, it's crazy. It sounds like snowflake as shit, but back then the show Goosebumps, that used to be like the scariest thing they would show on Cartoon Network or CBS or PBS or whatever the network was. But shout out to everyone who remembers Goosebumps. Oh, it's another one. The Addams Family. I don't know if you guys seen The Addams Family. I feel like that was a good one too. I missed the Adams Family for everyone who remembers that one. So Goosebumps, the Adams Family, there were a few shows like that, and I think that's what Stranger Things kind of gives me the feeling of. You know what I mean? Like it's something that's quote unquote scary, but not really. But it's really just entertaining. It's really fascinating. So I don't know. I like that show. So shout out to everyone that's been watching Stranger Things, and congrats on the show for bringing back Kate Bush, man. When I was listening to that and they were playing like Metallica and shit, I was like, damn, these guys really, these motherfuckers went on all out with their music selection. These guys, man, they bring it, man. So, anyways, I like Stranger Things. I've been on a kind of, I don't want to say a Netflix binge, but last couple of nights I was catching up on some shows. And then, just kind of, I didn't know they came out with a new Love, Death, and Robot. Was it Love? Is it Love, Death, and Robots? Something like that. That's a good one that my best friend Lee got me on. I didn't even know what that was about. And then a couple of years ago, he's like, dude, you got to watch Love, Death, and Robots. I was like, Love, Death, and Robots? What the fuck is that shit? He's like, bro, you got to watch that shit. It's kind of crazy. I'm like, all right. He said, and you know what it is? He knows that I like to watch shows that, like, I don't mind anime. I'll watch anime thing or whatever. It's cool. But I like shows or movies that have to do with, like, the future, like future technology and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just, I don't want to say I'm a tech geek, but, like, I am very futuristic. Like I really do, I'm very fascinated with technology that's getting built today that again is going to change the world we live in and change, how we live in the world. That's why like I'm a huge like advocate of and fan of things like the metaverse and things of that nature, flying cars like we're seeing with Joby. I'm really fascinated with like things like drones, for example, and package delivery using drones and military applications using drones and autonomous software. Again, we continue to see advancements when it comes to AI and, basically cars and trucks being able to drive themselves with no drivers. You know what I mean? It's things that we always knew, like we always saw coming and we always knew they were going to exist in the world and we always knew that they were, like this moment in time was always going to come. It was always going to arrive. We knew it. We just didn't know how long it would take. And, a lot of things with technology, sometimes there's setbacks, sometimes there are delays, but all things are eventually inevitable. So I think there's a lot of great technology that's out there that's, like I said, being developed, being advanced. Some of you guys are paying attention to what's going on with these rocket companies and everyone sees what SpaceX is doing and what Elon's doing with SpaceX and, everything from planetary expedition to asteroid mining. And, we look at all the things that NASA's always researching and out here fucking looking up black holes and different parts of the universe and, trying to figure out how many galaxies exist in the universe. To me, I think that shit's interesting. You know what I mean? Like, those are conversations I like to have with clients and friends. Like, I like to talk about the universe. I like to talk about flying cars. I like to talk about robots. I like to talk about artificial intelligence. I like to talk about machine learning. I like to talk about quantum computers. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, that's really what I like to talk about and what really fascinates me. I don't really give a fuck what the Kardashians are doing. I don't give a fuck what that one bitch on TikTok is doing. I don't give a fuck what your burnt ass homies are doing. I don't give a fuck what the chisme is. Like, I don't like to talk about the past. I hate when people do that. They bring up the past all the fucking time. And it's like, bro, some people spend too much time in the past that they'll never focus on their future. They're just stuck on the past. And I get it. For some people, like 5-10 years ago was like their peak in life, and ever since it's been downhill. I get it. A lot of your friends that you went to high school with turned out to be losers. I get it. A lot of the people that you grew up with turned out to be, ended up not doing anything with their lives. I get it, right? It sucks. It's sad, but oh fucking well, that doesn't mean it has to be you, right? So I get it. Some people just keep talking about the past and reminiscing on the past, and I don't mind it. Like I said, like, I like to watch, shows based on the past. I like flashbacks. I like blasts from the past. Like, I dig that shit, but I don't want to spend like my entire afternoon or my entire night, just talking about the 80s and 90s. Like, I also want to spend a lot of time talking about the next decade and the next decade after that and the next, 100 years. and I like to talk about like what's going to happen in the world, and all the changes we're seeing in the world. And I think you're starting to see some of these changes already. Again, that's why I talk a lot about like charging stations and electric vehicle adoption and the supply chain. Again, I don't want to just own the companies that are making electric vehicles like Tesla and NIO. I also want to own the entire supply chain. I want to own the entire thing. I want to own all the companies that give them all their supplies. I want to own the lithium. I want to own the nickel. I want to own the graphite. I want to own the lithium. I want to own the rare earth. And then downstream to the end, I want to own the charging station companies. Because again, like I always say, you can make 1 million electric cars tomorrow. Guess what? Doesn't mean anything if you don't have anywhere to charge them, right? So, and I think it's kind of like, I think it's basically a foregone conclusion at this point that charging stations are eventually going to replace every gas station in the country and eventually around the world. So again, I want to get in on the ground floor, and I want to get in as early as possible, as cheap as possible, and just ride these investments for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. One of the things I always say on this podcast is, in my opinion, investing in charging stations today is like investing in gas station stocks and oil stocks back in the 1940s and 50s. And the reason I bring up, or even like 1920, honestly, and the reason I bring up 1920, 1930, 1940, now that we're talking about the past, is Elon came out with a tweet a couple months ago, and he said right now in the transportation industry, we are at the same inflection point we were in the late 1920s. And he went on to say that in the late 1920s, the most common form of transportation in the world, again, not just the country, but in the world, the most common form of transportation in the late 1920s was horses. And he said back, like, obviously 1920s, 1930s, that was, pretty much like the peak of the Wild West. If any of you guys like to watch like old Western movies, I like that too. That shit too, by the way. There's a good movie, if you guys haven't seen it, it's called Tombstone. Man, that shit go hard as fuck. I don't know if you guys seen that movie. That movie goes hard as fuck. But like, there's other movies like No Country for Old Men, Tombstone. There's a lot of movies. I like old Western movies that based in the 1920s and 30s. Some desperado shit. Like, I'm all about it. I love old Westerns. I dig it. And he was basically saying in the late 1920s, the most common form of transportation in the world was riding horses. And he said, but there was an inflection point in the late 1920s because that was around the time that the first car was basically built, like, the first automobile. And he said eventually throughout the late 20s and 30s and 40s, automobiles, cars, became more and more common. And what you saw was just kind of like what you're seeing today with electric vehicles. What you saw was in the big cities, New York, Chicago, LA, Europe, Asia, what you saw was in the big, metropolitan cities in every part of the world, there was a movement where people, like a lot of households, started asking themselves, honey, are we going to buy another horse? Because this one's kind of getting old. Or do you want to go ahead and buy a car? And initially there was a lot of hesitation by families because they said, well, the family horse has been here for generations, all that bullshit. But eventually, like all things, right, the wife just kept pushing the husband, and eventually got off his ass and gave her what he wanted. And they bought the car. And, as soon as one neighbor buys the car, what does everyone do? Ooh, oh my God, the Timothys over there, they just bought a car. They got one of those new automobiles. Oh my gosh. We can't keep riding around the neighborhood in a horse. No, we have to be civilized. We have to be sophisticated, and that's, so like I said, that whole like dick measurement contest, keeping up with the Johnsons, that shit's been around for like ages, since like the dawn of time. But nonetheless, it existed in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, right? And during that time, there was a lot of, I don't want to say there was a lot of debate, but there was definitely an inflection point that Elon's referring to. And he's saying, a lot of people were just having those conversations more and more because what happens is as soon as one person in the neighborhood buys an automobile, guess what happens? The second person wants to buy it. The third person wants to buy it. The fourth person wants to buy it. Now all of a sudden the Johnsons own one. Now all of a sudden this one owns that. And then all of a sudden all the families in the neighborhood want to buy a car. Because, oh my God, Susan, her husband, they just bought themselves a new automobile. Babe, when are we going to stop riding the horse? There's nothing wrong with the horse, but babe, we need an automobile too. We can't be the last in the neighborhoods to get one. It's just like, again, it sounds so fucking bougie, douchey, just, but it is what it is. Don't act like that's not how America still works today. I mean, let's just be honest, guys. So, anyways, yeah, and so he said eventually over time, by the time you got into the 50s and 60s, for the most part, nobody really rode a horse. Like, there were still people like, Buttfuck, Texas or something like that probably still rode horses. But for the most part, the majority of the country had an automobile. It had a fucking car. And eventually you got trucks and pickup trucks and, you know what I mean? And then, decade, 2 decades later, you get fucking minivans and shit like that. But it all started with the first automobile. It all started with the first fucking car. And again, as soon as one person got it, everyone else in the neighborhood had to get it. And then when everyone in that neighborhood got it, everyone in the next neighborhood had to have it. Right? And it was slow. I mean, that shit, didn't happen overnight, right? Like it took a while. We didn't go from everyone in the country riding horses to, everyone in the country having a car like in 24 hours. Like that shit took years and years and years, and about, I'd probably say, I don't know, maybe like 2 decades or something like that, 20 years, which I know it sounds like a long time, but really in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that long. Because again, look at some of your coworkers. They've been working at that same company for over 20 years now, and they still don't have enough to retire. So don't give me that whole, 20 years, that's fucking forever. 20 years really isn't that long. Okay, I'm telling you, trust me, hand to God. Go look at every person that works at your company. I bet you there have been some people working there for damn near 20 years. Still ain't made it out the hood. So don't give me that 20 years is a long time. Because again, as you get older, you'll understand this. Some of you guys are too young to understand this. But trust me when I tell you, as you get older, the whole like phrase, time flies, and time is always just running, like that shit, you start to understand the real meaning of that the older you get. Because the older you get, it feels like the faster time flies. Like when you're 19, 20, 21, you think you're going to be young forever. You think you'll be in the club, chasing pussy, drinking, having fun with your friends, doing what the fuck you want. You think you're going to be 19, 20, 21 forever. Then all of a sudden you hit 25, and all of a sudden you're like, damn, well, that went kind of fast. And then all of a sudden you hit 28, 29, 30, and you're like, damn, got to get my shit together, man. This shit's going by faster than I thought. The next thing you know, you're like 35, 40, and you're like, fuck, man, I've been fucking up. I haven't been taking this shit seriously. No, I gotta be 20 again. I'm starting too late, Miguel. I gotta hurry up and catch up now. And then you get to like 50, 60, and you're like, fuck, it's over. It's over. I fucked up. It's over. I'm telling you, time fucking flies, and the older you get, the faster it fucking goes. It's crazy, but that's just how shit is, guys. It just is how it is, right? So anyways, so yeah, it took about 20 years. But Elon said basically 20, 30 years max, I guess. But eventually over those 20 years, from the mid 1920s to like the late 1940s, by the time we got to the 50s and 60s, it was pretty much done. Everyone in America had a car, right? And then again, by the time you got to the 70s, that's when you had like the Scooby-Doo mobiles and shit, and everyone's, getting trucks and getting vans and shit of that nature, right? So yeah, I mean, it took a while. Wasn't overnight, but eventually we got there as a country, as a world, as a culture, as a society. But he said it really all started in the 1920s. In the 1920s is when we hit that inflection point. And once we hit that inflection point where that first person got the automobile, we never really looked back. After that, it was off to the races. Both figuratively and literally, off to the races. Because again, as soon as one person in the neighborhood got it, everyone had to have it. Just is what it is. And so now, when you look at electric vehicles, right, obviously Tesla's been around for a while now. It's not like they're, a new company, so to speak. Like they've been around for a while, and they've been making electric vehicles for, over 10 years now. But now, because of legislation, and that's something we always talk about on this podcast, and it's legislation getting passed in New York, it's legislation getting passed in California, it's legislation getting passed in Washington. And again, it's not just a state level. Now we're seeing federal governments around the world. We all know the legislation and the laws that China passed, Australia passed, most countries in Asia passed, Japan passed, Europe has passed, Canada has passed, New Zealand has passed, Australia's passed. Every country around the world is pretty much passing more and more laws that are basically designed and meant to hurry up and speed up the adoption of electric vehicles. So you see a lot of countries, like look at China, for example. They're saying every car in the country has to be electric by the year 2030, basically. You know, every car in the country basically has to be electric by 2030. And, you know, they're saying by like 2030, 2035, if you're caught in the country driving a car that doesn't run on, you know, that if you're caught driving a vehicle that isn't electric, that you can basically go to jail for like 30 days for doing it. Like China doesn't, you know, they don't play around. They don't fuck around. China's being very aggressive with their EV adoption policies and, you know, laws and regulations that they're passing through. And we're seeing the same thing through Europe. We're seeing the same thing, you know, in Australia, New Zealand, Canada. The list goes on. And again, all these laws are designed for one thing and one thing only: to speed up and hurry up the adoption of electric vehicles around the world. And so you're going to see a mass migration from vehicles that run on gasoline to vehicles that are electric. And you're probably going to see it this decade. Like the 2020s is going to be the biggest decade in the history of the world for electric vehicle adoption. It just is what it is, right? Whether it's because of laws or whether you're buying an EV because you want to keep up with the Johnsons, right? But I'm starting to see it now, even in my own neighborhood. Like 2-3 years ago, nobody in my neighborhood drove an electric vehicle. Like I live in a little cul-de-sac and everything, but in my little small cul-de-sac community, there's only like whatever, I don't know, maybe like 12, 15 houses in this little neighborhood. And these little 12, 15 houses that are around me, nobody drove an electric vehicle 2-3 years ago. And now the neighbor across the street has a Tesla, and the neighbor a couple houses down from me has a Tesla, and then it looks like the new guy that's moving in like 2 doors down from me, the people that live there moved out, and I think someone bought their house and moved in, and that motherfucker looks like he drives a Tesla too. It's either him or his wife. One of them drive a Tesla. And so now I'm starting to see like, oh shit, 2-3 years ago, nobody in the neighborhood drove an electric vehicle. Now 2-3 years later, we got 2-3 Teslas parked in the driveways. You see my point? Like you're starting to see it more and more and more. And it's not just Teslas. Eventually you're going to see electric vehicles for every car company, right? Everyone wants to go fully electric by 2024, 2025, 2026, you know, at the latest 2028. But everyone's trying to go fully electric by mid-decade. And, you know, you're going to continue to see a lot of money spent, you know, basically in this industry trying to go fully electric, and everyone's going to try to catch up with Tesla and basically not go bankrupt, not go extinct, right? And they're going to spend billions and billions of dollars doing it. In the meantime, in between time, you know, me and my soldiers here at Magayon Entertainment, we want to invest in everything. We don't want to just invest in the electric vehicle manufacturers like a Tesla, like a NIO, but we also want to invest in their entire supply chain. Because again, if you don't have the supply chain, then you can't make electric vehicles at all, can you? So again, we want to invest in the microchips. We want to invest in the batteries. We want to invest in battery recycling. We want to invest in the charging stations. We want to invest in the core components of the batteries, the lithium, the graphite, the nickel, the copper, the you know what I mean, the rare earth materials. We want everything. I want the entire motherfucking supply chain. And, you know, that's something we're going to do from now and basically until the rest of the decade, bare minimum. Because again, this decade, in my opinion, you are going to see the largest global adoptions of electric vehicles around the world. And yes, a lot of it is being forced onto us because of all these laws and regulations and policies that are being imposed on the automotive industry. But if you know that ahead of time, then why wouldn't you invest in your money in it today before all that happens? Because again, going back to what Elon said, you know, he said that inflection point for cars, you know, and everyone stop riding horses and start using cars, that didn't really become mainstream until probably the late 1920s. But, you know, by the time we got into the late 1940s and we got into the, you know, late 40s, early 50s, everyone was buying cars. And by the 60s and 70s, it was just common. Like, you know, it became the new standard. And there was almost nobody in the country aside those random, you know, cowboys in New Mexico or, you know, farmers in Wyoming or something like that. But aside from stuff like that, yeah, 99% of the population in the country was all driving cars, you know? And so I think you're seeing the same thing now. And he's basically pointing that out. He's saying that this is the inflection point right now. This is the inflection point. And he's saying the inflection point really started in like probably 2019, 2020. And he said it's probably started in like 2019, 2020 and even 2021, right? That 2-3 year gap. He's saying it's starting there now for electric vehicles, despite the fact they've been making electric vehicles since like day one. But he's saying you're seeing a global inflection point now, these last 2-3 years, because all these countries are finally coming out with all these laws that are going to force all the auto manufacturers to go electric, whether they want to or not. And so now all the auto manufacturers are saying they're going to be 100% electric by mid-decade. Well, that's a huge fucking inflection point. So I think Elon's, macro point here is that by mid-decade, there's not going to be that many car companies in the world that even build cars that run on gasoline. So that means if you have a car right now that runs on gasoline, you can keep it, but there's not going to be any new ones that are getting built moving forward. Moving forward past, 2026, 27, and 2028, if you want to buy a car from Ford, or you want to buy a car from Toyota, or you want to buy a car from GM, or you want to buy a car from Nissan or Mazda or Buick, or, who gives a fuck, right? The only cars they're going to have available for purchase are going to be electric vehicles. They're not going to make any cars moving forward that run on gasoline and have combustible engines. Even now, a lot of the cars they're building are like low-key hybrid. You know what I mean? Where it's like half gas, half electric. So you're starting to see the movement already take place, but he said it's going to be more obvious and flagrantly obvious by the time we get to mid-decade, because these car companies want to be 100% electric by mid-decade. And so he's saying that's a massive inflection point you're going to start to see. And, so again, like with that kind of data and that kind of knowledge, if we already have that ahead of time, I don't see how the fuck you can be still like negative on investing in charging stations, or, the entire infrastructure for the space and the advancement of this space. So, that's just something that, I think we all just need to keep in mind, where that inflection point from horses to cars took about 20 years to play out. Again, 20 years really isn't that long. It seems like a long time, but I mean, again, some of your friends been losers their whole life and they're already in their 30s and 40s, but nobody says anything about that. But I tell you, this is like something I'm going to be investing in for the next 20 years. And it's just like, oh, bro, that's such a long time. I'm like, yo, when this shit plays out and this shit fucking pays out, like we already know who's going to be at the finish line holding all the feria. I'm just saying, y'all can ride with me or you guys can fuck off. It's your choice. But that's just one of the things that I'm going to continue to do. And a lot of people keep asking me about that. And I'm still throwing a lot of money on charging station stocks. And like I said, these are investments I'm going to keep in my portfolio and in my kids' portfolio and my wife's portfolio and my family trust fund. These are things I'm going to keep dumping money into over and over again for the next 10, 20 years, just nonstop. And again, just to cap this off right here, I firmly believe that investing in charging stations today is the same as investing in oil stocks and gas companies and petroleum companies back in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. You know what I mean? And what I would do, again, if you guys just, want to do this on your own, I would recommend it. The easiest thing to do is, and this is kind of just like a financial way of doing it, and just looking at some of the numbers, I would go to ExxonMobil stock, since we all know ExxonMobil is one of the biggest oil companies in the history of the world. Go to ExxonMobil stock, ticker symbol is XOM, and go to their chart, their max chart. Again, ticker symbol is XOM, and go to ExxonMobil's max chart, and go to when they debuted on the New York Stock Exchange. When ExxonMobil first debuted on the New York Stock Exchange, their stock used to be $6 back then. Back in 1985, their stock debuted on the stock market at around $6. Right now, their current market cap is about almost $400 billion. So back when the stock was $6, their market cap was probably somewhere around 20 to 30 billion. So again, a $6 stock price for them back then represented a market cap of about 20, 30 billion dollars, right? 20, 30 billion dollars, somewhere in that range. Now, what I would say is that was in 1985. What did I just get done saying? What I just got done saying is everyone in the country already had a car by the time we basically got into the 70s. By the time we got into the 70s, like I said, that's when everyone's driving the little Scooby-Doo fucking vans, But like 70s, yeah, everyone had a car, or at the very least, they used public transportation like subways and buses and things of that nature. But having a car was kind of like the thing to do, especially in big cities. Very few people in the country, and I'm not saying nobody, but very few people in the country used a horse as public transportation back in the 70s. Now, I know there's probably some rural towns or rural areas in buttfuck Oklahoma or Texas or New Mexico where there were still some cowboys riding up and down with horses. I get it. But like, again, I'm talking about big metropolitan cities, New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, Seattle, San Francisco. You look at the big cities back then. Yeah, it was all about cars. Everyone was driving cars by the time we got into the 70s. So by the time ExxonMobil debuts on the stock market in 1985, I mean, cars were basically like de facto, like that was everyone has a car. Nobody rides a horse anymore. You know what I mean? Like that, obviously. And in 1985, ExxonMobil stock price was $6 and the market cap was about 20 to 30 billion. So now I pull up ChargePoint, right? ChargePoint's trading right now around $13, $14, right? Which is basically the same price I bought it at back in late 2020. And you look at the market cap for ChargePoint. ChargePoint's market cap right now is about $4.5 billion. Let me say that again. ChargePoint's market cap right now is about $4.5 billion. Think about how fucking tiny that shit is. $4.5 billion, that's it? The company last year made about $500 million in total revenue. This year, they're expected to make $700 to $800 million in total revenue. So again, last year, if they made give or take $500 million in total revenue, and the market cap right now is about $4.5 billion, they're trading at what? About 9 times revenue. And again, this year, for 2022, they're expected to do about $800 million in total revenue. So, if they keep the same multiple of about 9 to 10 times revenue, then that means the market cap should go to about 8 or 9 billion. But even if it gets to 10 billion, we're talking about a market cap at the end of the year potentially around $10 billion if the stock doubles from now until the end of the year. But a market cap of $10 billion, again, by the time ExxonMobil even debuted on the stock market, it was already trading at, 20, 30 billion market cap. And it still ran from $6 all the way to like damn near $100 just a couple weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, that was in a time in the 1985s where everyone already had a fucking car. We're nowhere near peak adoption for electric vehicles. Electric vehicles still only make up like 1 or 2% of all the vehicles in the world being sold right now. Like it still has miles and miles and miles of runway left. Again, right now, less than 2% of all vehicles right now in the world are electric. Less than 2%. So, I mean, we still have a long fucking way to go. You know what I mean? Like, again, right now, 2-3 years ago, nobody in my neighborhood had an electric car. 2-3 years later, there's about 2-3 Teslas on the driveways now. What do you think is going to happen in another 2-3 years? And 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 another 2-3 years? You see how this math gets stupid at some point? Where it just becomes like stupid gains at some point? So, you know what I mean? And all it really is a waiting game. Some of you are going to, like I said, all of you are going to get older no matter what. And as you get older, time's going to continue to fly. And the only difference is, are you going to get 0% for the next 10, 20 years? Or are you going to let that shit compound on compound on compound and get interest on the motherfucking interest, right? And again, there's only 2 types of employees at your company right now. You have the first kind that have been working there for 20, 30 years and are still nowhere near retiring, and they're probably going to work there another 20, 30 years. And then there's the people that used to work there for 10, 15, 20 years, and now they're retired, and that's why you don't know who they are, because they left. So the only 2 types of employees at a company are the ones who retire and the ones who never saved enough money to retire, and that's why they're still working there with you. That's the only 2 types of employees that work at companies. Just my opinion. So anyways, yeah, ChargePoint market cap. I'm looking at it right now, trading at $13, $14 as I record this clip. Market cap, by the way, ticker symbol for ChargePoint, for those of you guys who don't know by now, CHPT, ticker symbol is CHPT. But yeah, ChargePoint market cap, $4.5 billion. When ExxonMobil debuted on the stock market back in 1985, January of 1985, their market cap was around $20-30 billion at a $6 stock. And that $6 stock, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, it was trading at an all-time high of about 110, 120. So, you know what I mean? And here we are with ChargePoint with only a $4.5 billion market cap. And we are in an inflection point right now. Again, Elon said that the inflection point from horses to cars didn't really start until the late 1920s. But he's saying the inflection point for electric vehicles is happening right now as we speak. So that makes me like super bullish. And then again, when you have the CEO of Ford, the CEO of GM, the CEO of Toyota, the CEO of Lamborghini, the CEO of Porsche, the CEO of Ferrari, the CEO of Bugatti, all these car companies all around the world literally telling us that they're all planning to be 100% fully electric by mid-decade, not even 2026, 2027, 2028. We're talking 2024, 2025, mid-decade. They all plan to be 100% electric by then. You know what I mean? And some of you guys are still asking me if charging stations are a good investment. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? No mames, are you that stupid? So that's my update right there on charging station stocks. And the second reason I wanted to bring it up isn't just because a lot of people are asking me if I'm still invested in charging station stocks. Again, ChargePoint being my favorite one, EVgo probably being number 2, and Proterra's bitch ass being number 3 right now. And I'll give an update on Proterra next month because they have their earnings call coming up. I'm gonna listen to their earnings call, see what management has to say, and then again, I'll give you guys an update if I end up cashing out of Proterra or if I stay in there. But I want to see what's going on with their federal contracts. I want to see what's going on with Proterra's government contracts. And I want to see what's going on with their supply chain, because that's kind of the biggest thing holding back a lot of car companies and a lot of charging station companies. A lot of people have been asking me about that. And honestly, the biggest thing holding back a lot of these car companies, because Ford and GM talked about this recently, they said that the reason they're not making more electric vehicles faster isn't because they don't want to. It's because they're not getting all their supplies in time. And it can always be like 1 month they're not getting microchips in time. The next month they're not getting enough lithium. The next month they're not getting enough rare earth. And if you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, you can't finish the project. So every time there's supply chain hiccups, China, bitch ass China, every time there's supply chain issues, it slows down their ability to make as many electric vehicles as they can and as they want. Because again, if you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, you can't finish the project. So you have to go ahead and shut down the factory again. And everyone's basically just sitting on their ass waiting for the supplies to show up. And so that, if anything, that's why they're not building more charging stations faster and they're not building more electric vehicles faster. It all just comes back down to the supply chain issues. So I would just be very reticent of that right there and just be cognizant. And that kind of leads me into something I want to talk about. I want to give a quick shout out to one of my maxed out VIP subscribers. His name's Jesus. He lives out there in San Antonio, Texas. He just signed up for the VIP package 3 days ago. Yeah, I think it was like 3 days ago. Jesus signed up, became a maxed out VIP subscriber. Shout out to my man Jesus out there in San Antonio, Texas. Tejas, as they would say. And Jesus was hitting me up over the weekend after he signed up for the VIP. I sent him all the VIP clips. He killed that shit in 1 day. He's already like locked in, just maxed out, locked and loaded. This dude's a fucking real one. I can already tell. And so shout out to you, Jesus. Glad to have you on the VIP team now. But Jesus was asking me over the weekend about that, like, you know, how come Ford and Jesus was saying, I think you were saying something about your friend that works with you. He has a rich friend, like everyone always has a rich friend, and he's saying one of his rich friends, I forgot his name, but he was trying to order one of those electric F-150s that everyone's talking about. And again, what do I say? Why is he ordering an F-150, the electric one? Why is he doing it? Because somebody else at work already got their electric F-150, and what happens? As soon as one motherfucker gets one, everybody else wants one. You guys know how this fucking game works by now. So anyways, I guess somebody at their work, you know, pulled up in one of those brand new F-150s, the electric ones, and everyone, you know, came out the office and came out the building, and they're like, ooh, look how cool it looks, ooh, you know, all that bullshit people be doing, and he was all showing off, you know how motherfuckers are, showing off, and, you know, as soon as, you know, Jesus' friend saw that, he's like, man, I gotta get me one of those, man, those are badass, I gotta get me one. So he went online, and no shit, he tried to place an order for one of the brand new F-150s, and when he went on the website to place his down payment to see, like, you know, how long it would take to get delivered, the website at Ford was saying like 18 to 24 months estimated delivery. And he was like, fuck, no mames, 18 to 24 months for delivery. What the fuck? And he was just like mind blown. He was like, sheesh, that shit's crazy. How the fuck you gonna make me wait 18 to 24 months? So you're telling me you're gonna take my down payment today and I gotta wait 2 years for delivery? The fuck out of here. How the fuck they expect me to wait that long, bro? Like, I want that shit now. I was dying when he was telling me this story. I just thought it was funny as fuck because it's true. When you go to like, websites like Ford and GM and you try to get like the electric Hummer, like some of these wait times can be anywhere between 12 to 24 months. It really just depends like on the specific model you're trying to order and what specific like auto manufacturer you're going to, because everyone has different wait times. Like Ford has a different wait time than Toyota. Toyota has a different wait time than Tesla. And then even then it's what specific type of vehicle are you trying to order? And then where do you live? That's another one, right? So there's all these factors that come into play. And, but anyways, this dude that Jesus works with, he was trying to order one online and I forgot the down payment was like 5-6 G's or something like that. And he went to go put on his, by the way, it's only 5-6 G's because he has good credit. Some of you guys out here with your stank ass credit scores, I'm telling you, better fix that shit. Just saying, America, just saying. Some of you don't want to listen. All right. So anyways, he has good credit and, he was saying even with good credit, they still wanted like 5-6 G's down, which I didn't really think that was that bad, right? So they wanted like 5-6 grand down. But again, the wait time was like 18-24 months. And I was just like, whoo, all right, that's kind of a wait, but it is what it is, right? And then like he went into like try to figure out, I think he tried to call somebody and figure out like, why is it taking so long? Like, how come he has to wait 18 to 24 months? Isn't there something he can get delivered faster? Because again, everyone wants to be like their friend at work that just pulled up in the new F-150. Oh, ay Dios mío. You know how that shit goes. So he wants his shit like now because he don't want to wait no more. You know what I mean? He wants to be in the cool kids club at work, which I fucking think that's hilarious. Like every job site has like the cool kids club. Like you gotta be fucking kidding me. It's like, I'm telling you, it's funny, but it's also sad and it's also frustrating that, some things never change. Some things just never change in life. There's always little clicks and shit. It's I don't know, it's weird, but whatever. Some of you guys, that's just what you do. So apparently all the cool kids now at the job site have the electric F-150s, and now he wants his now because, he wants to be one of the cool kids, as soon as possible. And so he was calling around trying to figure out why it's taking so long to get it delivered if he has the money to pay right now. And they're saying, oh, it's just like supply chain shortages and supply chain issues. And we're really having a tough time trying to get all the materials we need for the batteries. And again, like electric vehicle is just basically a tablet on wheels. It's basically a computer on wheels. And the battery is like 90% of the fucking computer, right? So, Ford representative just told him that, it's really hard right now for the company because, sometimes they get some materials they need, but sometimes they don't. Or sometimes even when they get it, they don't get enough or they don't get the full shipment. And there's always like hiccups and shit going on. And then, of course, he's like, well, how come my friends that got a Tesla out there in California, they didn't have to wait this long? How come they got their shit faster? And they're over there like, well, everyone's supply chain is different. We don't know where they're getting their shit from. And I'm just like, nah, bro. That's just a roundabout way of saying we was fucking up. That's all that is. Like, we fucked up. We didn't take this shit seriously enough 5-10 years ago. And now, you know what I mean? We're paying for it because we're trying to fucking figure this shit out, last minute and shit. And that's why our supply chain's all fucked up. There you go. That's all you got to say. I don't know why they got to make it seem like, oh, well, it's not apples to apples. I'm like, bro, it kind of is, But anyways, so Jesus' friend was, asking him to ask me, like, what the fuck is up with that? And that's really it. It's just supply chain issues, right? Now, eventually, will the supply chain issues get fixed? Yeah, eventually. I think some of these companies will still go bankrupt because I don't think all these auto manufacturers are going to be able to fix their supply chain issues. I think some of them are they waited too long and now it's just going to be too late. But I think many of them will figure it out over time, mostly the big guys. And, they'll get all these issues resolved and they'll be able to make all the electric cars they want. And again, everyone's trying to go fully electric by mid-decade. So that tells me by the end of the decade, every car sold around the world will be 100% electric. And again, if this is the inflection point that Elon's talking about, that, you know what I mean? Like, well, the inflection point relative to horses going to cars, if he's saying this inflection point is happening right now, then again, just one more reason why I want to keep investing in charging station companies. And again, the entire supply chain, from the lithium to the graphite to the nickel to the copper to the rare earth, all the way to the auto manufacturers like a Tesla, like a NIO. And I want to own everything. I want to own fucking everything. You know what I mean? Top down and shit. And so that's something I'm still dumping a lot of money into right now, and something I'm still super bullish. Again, not just for the next 10 years, honestly, even the next 20, 30, 40 years. Like, it's just not going away. But bare minimum for the next 10 years until 2030, I am going heavy on charging stations and the entire movement towards electric vehicles. I am going heavy as fuck into that sector right there. And I think, even with the recession that we're obviously in my opinion, I've been saying it for months and months now, and again, it's going to continue to get worse. For those of you guys who want to know more about the recession, I came out with a clip a couple weeks ago called The Waves of the Recession. Currently, we are in wave 3. I broke down every wave of the recession. Currently, we are in wave 3 of the recession. Wave 4 will happen August, September, October, and then by the time we get to December, January, we're going to hit the final and 5th wave. And that's going to be when we get into the depths of hell. But from now until then, things are going to continue to get a lot worse in the economy. And, some of you will survive, some of you won't. And unfortunately, that's just the way a recession works. Not everyone always comes out a millionaire. Some people come out poorer than they used to be. It just is what it is. I'm going to try to save as many of you as I can. But, some of you are going to tell me to fuck off along the way. And I'm going to just let you bitches drown on the side of the boat. Like I said, I'm not here to be Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ sacrificed himself on the cross for all of us, and some of you still won't let him in your life. So I'm not going to be here and pretend that everyone's going to let the general save their financial future, because again, Jesus died for all of us, and some of you bitch ass motherfuckers still ignore him. So I'm not going to be here and try to be the next Jesus. Instead, I'm just going to be like Noah. I'm going to build a boat. I'm going to save a couple here. I'm going to save a couple there. The rest of you bitches can die and drown. Don't give a fuck. Not all of you are meant to be millionaires. Some of you are meant to stay poor forever. It sounds fucked up, but it is what it is. Somebody's got to pick up my trash in the morning. Shit, might as well be you then. So, anyways, that's kind of 2 questions I got from Jesus and his friends. So again, shout out to Jesus out there in San Antonio, great VIP subscriber. Glad to have you on. The next thing I want to talk about is another really big subscriber of mine, my brother-in-law Carlos out there in Lancas. I want to go ahead and reiterate a conversation me and him had. And this is a really important conversation that we had a couple days ago, maybe like a week ago now or so. And one of the things that we talked about was layoffs. And I really want to take a moment just to kind of just hit that point home one more time before I get into the stock market. The reason layoffs will continue to fuck everyone, and I mean everyone, right? I mean fucking everyone is going to get impacted by layoffs, is because, one of the things that I hear a lot, and this is what I was telling Carlos, one of the things that kind of like pisses me off is sometimes I get a lot of subscribers, and I've talked about this a few times now, but it's still really important to say again. I get a lot of subscribers, or I have a lot of clients or friends or just people that tell me, "Oh, Miguel, I'm not going to get laid off work. I'm not going to get laid off of work. No, I got job security. I work for the government. I work for the school district. I work for the city. I work for the state. I work for the government." And everyone, like, every time I bring up nationwide layoffs, the first fucking thing they always try to tell me, nah, I'm gonna be okay, Miguel. Nah, I'm gonna be alright. Nah, I'm gonna be just fine, man. Nah, it's not me. Not me. Nuh-uh, not me. And I'm like, bro, you're not the one that has to lose his job for your family to get fucked because of layoffs. What have I been saying over and over and over and over again? But some of you bitches just won't listen. Guys, the reason layoffs fuck everyone in the economy is because you don't have to be the one that loses his or her job. You don't have to be the one to get their hours cut back at work. You know what it has to be? All it has to be is someone in your family gets laid off. All that has to be is someone close to you in your life that gets their hours cut back at work, right? And so that's why I keep sharing this story from one of my VIPs. I'm not going to say his name, but one of my VIPs reached out to me a couple weeks ago, And what did he tell me? He said, bro, General, I love you. Thank you for everything you do. You're the man. You changed my life forever. You're a fucking real one. I love your podcast. I love your energy. I love everything about you and what you're trying to do for the people. You changed my life forever. My entire mentality is way different than it used to be a year ago. I appreciate everything you've done for me and just changed the way I look at life and changed the way I handle my finances and just changed the way I think now moving forward. But I can't be a VIP no more. I'm going to have to sign off. And I was like, damn, bro, what happened? You was one of my most loyal VIPs. What's going on, bro? And he's like, nah, I just got to sell all my Bitcoin tomorrow. I was like, what? You got to sell all your Bitcoin? He's like, yeah, I got to dump everything tomorrow. I'm like, damn, how much money you got in Bitcoin right now? And he's like, about 8 G's. I'm like, damn, you going to dump all that shit, bro? He's like, yeah, I have to. I ain't got no choice, bro. I'm like, what? What fucking happened? Tell me, what's going on? What's the scoop? And he was just like, nah, he's like, everything that you said was going to happen is already happening. They told my girl at work, I'm not going to say who she works for, but, let's just say she works for a major restaurant that is basically everywhere, nationwide restaurant. I don't want anybody to get mad at me, so I'm not going to name drop them, but she works at a place that, is everywhere. Every city in America has these. And she works at one of those big ones, and she's getting her hours cut back at work. And I was like, damn, what'd the manager say? And he said, well, basically, she used to work 4 days a week, but they're saying, things are kind of slowing down right now. So they said starting next week that they don't need her 4 days a week no more. They're going to cut her back to 2 days a week. And I was like, damn, bro, they cut her from 4 days a week to 2 days a week. And he's like, yeah, they've cut her back, like literally just gone. And he's like, they didn't even give us a heads up or nothing, just like he was talking about on the podcast. Like, like she just showed up to work one day, like everything's normal. And, the place looked busy. Like, I don't know what they tripping about, but, after when her shift ended, they wanted to see her in the office, and she went in there and they said, things are starting to slow down a little bit, and the company's kind of, starting to cut back hours and shit. If they don't feel like they really need them, right? Again, there are all these companies doing cost cutting and all this bullshit. So they say, well, we don't really need you. We're just going to let the other, girls on the floor pick up the extra slack. So we don't really need you. We're just going to make the other bitches work harder. Like, basically, that's what the company's doing. That's how they're going to do their cost cutting, is they're just going to have all the waitresses manage even more tables individually now. And that's just going to be their cost saving effort. Great job, America. Again, I'm not going to name drop them, but that's some garbage ass management for you. And, but you're going to see it. That's going to be something you see across the country as well. Just garbage ass, strategic management like that. You're just overloading your current workers because you don't want to hire more help. So instead, they're just going to overload the current staff they have and do the cost cutting by laying off employees that they actually need, but they're going to say that they don't. And what's going to happen is you're going to overload the ones that stay so much that they're just going to crash and burn to the ground because you're overworking them. But, like most managers, they don't give a fuck about you. You're just an employee number. You don't like it, find somewhere else to work. Just is what it is. That's unfortunately, how fucked up managers and supervisors are sometimes during a recession. Again, they never gave a fuck about you to begin with. All you are, I swear to God, is just an employee number. That's all you are. That's all you've ever been. And that's all you will ever be. That's why you have to keep investing and you have to keep loading these fucking portfolios, because this literally will be the only way you're allowed to achieve financial freedom and financial independence, so you can retire early and eventually get to the point in life where your money makes more money for you so you don't have to go to work anymore. But if you don't do that early, you're going to be like a lot of these other babosos that working when they're 67 years old and still not, having enough to retire. But whatever. So yeah, they cut her hours back at work, and she came home and she was frustrated and she was angry and she just like started like breaking down and shit. And I got this VIP and he's telling me like, my girl came home and she was crying and she was just pissed off, and she was just like, she was kind of devastated. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like the way this dude explained it to me was she was devastated. And she was devastated because she's been working there for like a long ass fucking time, and she thinks she's better than all the other waitresses that work there. And she's like, I don't know why the fuck they didn't cut those other bitches hour. They always show up to work late. They're always bitching. They always fucking try to leave early. They take long ass breaks. They don't even do their job right. They're always lagging it. And I'm the only one that ever shows up on time. I'm always there when they need someone to show up and like replace a shift. I'm always the one that they depend on. I'm always the one they lean on. I'm always the one that's working the hardest. I always do what I'm supposed to do. I never fucking complain. And yet, I'm the only one that gets her hours cut back. But you know what I mean? All these other bitches are keeping their hours, and they're just going to give them more tables, which means even when I do go to work, I'm not going to get as many tables, so I'm not going to get as many tips. And she was, you know what I mean? So like, and again, I can really relate to this story, and I can really relate to this like moment for them because, my wife was a waitress for vast majority of our marriage. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't until just a couple years ago she stopped having to go to work, but you know what I mean? Like, there was a long time when we were struggling, and like I said, you guys know my life story. I was on food stamps, I was on WIC, I was on welfare, I was on unemployment. Like, I didn't get to where I am overnight. It took me fucking years. You know what I mean? And my only regret was what? Not buying more. My only regret was what? Fucking spending money on weekends to hang out with motherfuckers I really don't care about. Like that was kind of my only regret looking back at it. I would have gotten to where I am now a lot fucking sooner if I had just stopped spending as much money as I did, doing stuff that, really wasn't that important in hindsight. But anyway, so I can relate to his story because I've lived through it myself. You know what I mean? I remember when they used to treat my wife like that. I remember when they used to cut her hours back at work. I remember when, we didn't really get that much time to bond as a family, and they were always calling her saying, oh, we need you to come in today. So and so didn't show up. So we need you to come in and like take their shift and blah, blah, blah. And my wife would always fucking come running because we needed the fucking money. So anytime they called her in on her off day, she would always show up because we needed the fucking money. You know how it is, America. We got motherfucking bills to pay. So, you know what I mean? Like I said, I've lived through that. I've been through that. So I feel that pain. I feel that emotion. I feel that fucking, I feel that because I lived that moment in time. So when he's telling me, yeah, she got her hours cut back from 4 days to 2 weeks or to 2 days a week, like that shit hurt me personally. Like, I don't even know his wife, but that shit fucking hurt me because it reminded me of what my wife went through. So, anyway, so he said I gotta sell all my Bitcoin because if she's only gonna be working 2 days a week instead of 4 days a week, then like that's a huge drop off in money. Because again, waitresses mostly survive off of tips. So if she's not gonna be making as much money, like I have to sell all this Bitcoin now just so I can make sure we have some money to like live off of. And she's gonna try to find a job somewhere else, but it doesn't really look like there's that many people hiring full-time waitresses. Everything's just part-time these days. And I'm like, yeah, bro, that's because you live in Cali, and Cali be on that bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, let's just be honest. That's how California runs. They know the rules of the game. They don't want to give anyone a full-time job or a full-time shift because if they do that, that means they got to pay you benefits and health care and dental, whatever the fucking state requires. And so what a lot of states do, instead of hiring you full-time, they just hire a bunch of part-time employees. So that way they never have to pay you those benefits or those fucking, you know what I mean? Like those luxuries. So instead of hiring one good full-time employee, they just hire two fucking, bag-ass employees that only fucking put in half the effort. But to them, that just makes sense, money-wise. And so it's really hard for people to find full-time employment. So what a lot of people in California have to do is they end up getting like 2-3 different part-time jobs. And then the problem with that is you get 2-3 different part-time jobs and you're always at the mercy of the fucking supervisor because you're always hoping that they don't double schedule you. So if you're going to work at one place from 8 to 12, you got to make sure the other supervisors know you're not available Monday 8 to 12 because you're working your first job. And then you got to make your schedule for your second job. Then you got to make your schedule for your third job. And you got to hope that all that shit fucking aligns. And basically what you're doing every week is just playing fucking Tetris, playing Tetris with your work hours, trying to figure out how you can work as many hours as possible and yet somehow come home and still be able to be like a mom to your kid, a dad to your kids, and being able to be there for your family. Like, how frustrating that is? You know how hard that is? You know how much of a mental challenge that is? Like, that shit's a lot for somebody. You know what I mean? Especially when you're in your 20s and 30s. Like, that's a fucking lot for anybody, any age. So, anyways, I really understood what that VIP was telling me. And, like I said, These are just examples of how you don't have to lose your job and you don't have to get your hours cut back at work in order for you to be impacted financially. And so that's one of the things I was telling my brother-in-law Carlos out there at Lancaster was, look, bro, like, I get it. Everyone's always telling me, oh, I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not going to get my hours cut back. No, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be good. I work for the government. I work for the district. I work for the state. I work for the city. I work for this. I work for that. No, I'm going to be okay. I'm just like, shut the fuck up, bro. It ain't got nothing to do with you. That's how I know your bitch ass never really lived through a recession. Because let me tell you what a recession fucking looks like on the ground floor. What happens is layoffs are going to happen across the country starting August. There's going to be a fuck ton of them in September. And then there's going to be that last wave of layoffs probably October. And for those 90 days, what you're going to see is layoffs, 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 layoffs across the fucking country. And again, most companies will not pre-announce layoffs. Most companies, what they're going to do is you're going to show to work one day, sometime in August, sometime in September, and when you show up to work, your manager's going to say, hey, bro, I need to talk to you real quick. And then as soon as he says that, your butthole's going to get all tight because you already know what the fuck he's about to say. And you're going to walk there to his office and you're going to be like, hey, how you doing, sir? Good day outside, isn't it? Nice and sunny. And they're going to be like, yeah. So, hey, I wanted to tell you, and I didn't want to tell you this in front of everyone. I wanted to tell you this in private, but, as you know, the economy is starting to slow down and, things are slowing down here as well. So, unfortunately, the company's starting to do some cutbacks here. And, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to keep you on the staff. I hate to tell you this. You're a good employee. I know you're a hard worker. You've been with the company for a while now. And, this isn't a reflection on you or your performance or your ability to perform. This is just unfortunately, this is a hard economic time for everyone. And unfortunately, the company has decided to go in the direction of cutting back some of the staff here as long as things continue to slow down. And unfortunately, your name was one of the ones that have unfortunately been selected for workplace termination. So I'm sorry to tell you the bad news. I know, you're probably frustrated and upset. And just know we did everything we could here at the company to keep as many people as we could. But unfortunately, we can't keep everyone. And, in times like this, when things are slowing down, this is just a natural course of business. And, I hate that it had to be you. I know you're a hard worker and, I know you show up and, I know you do your job well. And, if there was anything I could do, I would have done it. But unfortunately, your name was one of the ones that were selected. So I just want to let you know this will be your last 2 weeks or your last 3 weeks. And, you'll keep your regular shift and you'll keep coming in and working. And then, on such and such date will be your last day of employment. And after that, we wish you all the best. If you need a letter of recommendation for your next place of employment, by all means, we'll go ahead and we'll vouch for you. And, just again, thank you for all your work. Thank you for your contribution. And we really appreciate your time here. And that's kind of like the nutshell 2-3 minute speech that most supervisors across the country are going to start having with employees starting in August. And again, I know, no, Miguel, that's not going to happen to me. I work for the government. I work for the school district. I work for the city. All this other dumbass fucking excuses. But who is going to get that conversation, even if it's not you? It's probably going to be someone like your dad. It's probably going to be someone like your mom. It's going to be someone like your brother. It's going to be someone like your sister. It's going to be someone like your uncle. It's going to be someone like your aunt. It's going to be someone like your son. It's going to be someone like your daughter. It's going to be someone like your grandkids. It will be people in your life, people in your family that you love about and you care for deeply and greatly because they mean a lot to you. And unfortunately, some of them will be on the chopping block. And even if it's only one person in your family, guys, it can only be one person in your family. And guess what? It'll still impact you. Because if even one person in your family loses their job or gets their hours cut back at work dramatically and now they're struggling to maintain their house, their home, what's going to happen? The family is going to have to band together. The family is going to have to come together and do the best they can to keep them afloat until they can find new employment somewhere else, or they can get a second part-time shift somewhere else. And until that happens, everyone's going to have to come together and rally around that family member. You see my point? So that's why layoffs, especially the more they are, the more it impacts every family in the country. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you right fucking now, all of us, me included, all of us are going to get impacted by nationwide layoffs. It is going to hurt. It is going to be painful. It is going to be a gut punch. But you have to be fucking ready. Which leads me to the last thing I want to do and talk tonight about. So what does this mean for the stock market? You know what I mean? Like, are we still buying the dip? Are we still putting money in there? Right? Like, what are we doing? The truth is, and this is another question I'm getting from a lot of VIPs, is, do I still recommend buying the dip? Do I still, recommend, am I still telling my soldiers to pull the motherfucking trigger and load the AKs and load the Berettas and load the cannons and load the GATs and load the straps and prepare for war? And you got to keep buying the dip and you got to keep loading your portfolios because, again, for many of you, this is going to be the only way you have out of the hood. This is going to be the only way you have to, progress in life and move forward in life. This is the only way, and I mean this dead ass serious. Investing in stocks, investing in Bitcoin, investing in crypto, over the long term, this is probably the only way any of you will ever become a millionaire. I'm just being fucking honest. For a lot of you listening tonight, again, there's 70,000 subscribers across 30 different countries, 15 different time zones. I'm telling you guys, 70,000 of you in 30 different countries. For many of you, investing in stocks, Bitcoin, crypto, real estate, this is really the only ways any of you will ever become a millionaire. There's no way around it. So on one hand, and this goes back to my man Jesus out there in San Antonio. Shout out to all my subscribers in Texas, by the way. Nothing but love and support out there. Love all my subscribers in Texas. But, something I talk to a lot of them about is, this is long-term stuff. And, we've always said these are investments I want to own for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the rest of my life. We talked about charging stations for the first hour tonight. And I know that makes sense to a lot of you guys. And so if they're all long-term investments, then fuck it. Who cares if the stock market goes down even more or if it rallies from here? Who gives a fuck, bro? General, if all of these things are long-term investment, then doesn't that mean that, like you say before, doesn't that also mean that the stock price doesn't really matter then? Because regardless of what the stock price is today, tomorrow, next week, next month, even next year, regardless of what the price is, if we're going to be putting money into them for the next 10 years, then who gives a fuck if we're loading up, the cannon here at $10 and then next year we load up at $12 and $13 and $14 and $15 and $1, $2, $3. Because if 5-10 years from now, these stocks are going to be over $100, and who gives a fuck? Just buy as much as you can now, next week, next month, next paycheck, the paycheck after that, 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 and the motherfucking paycheck after that. Who gives a fuck? And I said, you're absolutely right. No, you are absolutely right. And I look at a company, one of the ones I've been talking about lately with some of my VIPs is look up Amazon stock, right? And I want you to pull up the max chart real quick on Amazon. And no, I'm not saying every investment we're in is going to be the next Amazon, although I could make that case. But I would just say, look, during the dot-com bubble, which a lot of people are saying we're in right now is the next dot-com bubble, is back in the year 2000, Amazon stock used to trade between $1.50 and $2, right? It used to trade between $1 and $2. Go back to the stock chart, look at Amazon max chart, right? One of the greatest companies in the history of the world and one of the greatest companies in American history for sure. Back in the year 2000, January 2000, the stock was trading at $4. And then by the time we got to the end of 2000, the stock was trading at 50 cents. So January of 2000, the stock was trading at $4. And by the time we got to January of 2001 and February of 2000, the stock was trading at 50 cents. I even got down to a quarter, I think. Yeah, go look at the Amazon stock chart from January 2000 all the way until like January 2001, January 2002. Look at that 24-month stretch. There was a time Amazon went from $4 down to $3, down to $2, down to $1, down to 75 cents, down to 65 cents, down to 55 cents, down to fucking 40 cents. And I know these numbers are adjusted because they just did a stock split. I know. But, it just speaks to the bigger point. The bigger point I'm making is there was a time Amazon stock fell like 75%. And there were probably people who bought it at $4, who got mad when it went to $3, who got even more mad when it went to $2, who got even more mad when it went to $1, who got even more mad when it went to 80 cents, got more mad when it was 75 cents, got more mad when it was 65 cents, got more mad when it was 50 cents, and probably lost their motherfucking mind when it went to 45, 50 cents. But does it change the fact that a couple of weeks ago, Amazon's stock was like $200? And I know, again, like I said, they just did a stock split, so the numbers are kind of like, it's not really what the stock price was trading at back then, but, the stock chart's been adjusted for the stock split. So I'm just talking about the macro point here. The 52-week high now, again, adjusting for the stock split, the 52-week high for Amazon was like $200. Now you can get it almost 50% off at $100. And some of you are like, bro, what the fuck? How is Amazon down 50%? It used to be almost be 200. Now it's almost here at 100. Like, what the fuck? That's fucking crazy. I'm like, I know, but it's technically done that before. Again, go back at the max chart. There was a time Amazon stock used to be $4. Then it went to $3. Then they went to $2. Then they went to $1.50. Then they went to $1.40, $1.20, $1.30, $1.10, $1.05, 99 cents, 98 cents, 97 cents, 96 cents, 95 cents, 80 cents, 75, 70, 69, 68, 67, 65, 50, 40, 39 cents. And yeah, you would say, holy shit, Amazon stock crashed 90% back during the dot-com bubble? I'm like, yeah, I know, huh? And there were people who bought the stock at 4 and bitched when it went to 3 and bitched when it went to 2 and then bitched when it went to 1 and then probably sold out and said, fuck this shit. And then there were other fucking rough riders that said, you know what? I know I bought it at 4 and I know it's down at 3, but you know what? I'm good with that. And then when it went down from $3 to $2, they said, I'm good with that. I'll buy more. And then from 2 to 1, they said, I'm good with that. I'll buy more. Did it hurt? Was it painful? Was it stressful? Was it a fucking shit show? Absolutely. But there was only two things people could do back then. They could either sell out and say, fuck this. I don't want to invest anymore. I'm done investing. Investing is stupid. Investing's for loser. I'm over it. And they just walked away. They stopped investing. And then, you know what? Now they're still working at Walmart somewhere. And then there was everyone else that said, look, I know I'm down. I know it just fell 50% from $4 to $2, but I'm going to buy more. I know I'm down 75% from $4 to $1, but it's okay. I'm going to buy more. I know I'm down 90% from $4 to 40 cents, which is absolutely fucking insane that it did that, but it did. But it's okay. I'm going to buy more because I know in the future, because this is long term, I know in the future, this is going to be worth so much fucking more money that I know what the general saying is right. My only regret in the future is I'm just going to be pissed that I didn't buy more. Well, you know what? Some people did, that. They bought more. They lowered their cost average. And in the year 2001, 2002, again, look at the stock chart. Women lie, numbers don't. Look at the stock chart. Amazon stock was literally trading, and I know it's adjusting for the stock split, but you guys get my bigger point. Amazon stock based in 2001, 2002 was trading at like 50 cents, 60 cents, 70 cents, 40 cents, 30 cents. And by the time we got to 2010, the stock was almost trading at $10. By the time we got to 2020, the stock was trading at $100. So if you had lowered your cost average below $1, by the end of the decade, you were at $10. By the end of the next decade, you were at $100. And then by the end of 2030, it's probably going to be at $1,000. So basically, you've just been 10xing your portfolio every 10 years. Every 10 years, a 10x, a 10x, and then potentially now another 10x. So, I don't know. I don't know what else I can say. That either makes sense to you or it fucking doesn't. Now, here's the last thing I want to say before I dip out of here, because I got to go do a live stream for my VIP. Shout out to everyone who's a VIP subscriber. I'm about to start the live stream in about 2 hours, but chances are we're going to do the live stream before I send out tonight's clip. Shout out to all my VIPs jumping on the live stream these days. Tonight I'm going to go ahead and talk about stop losses and how to set a proper stop loss on your investments. So shout out to all my VIPs signed up and who are ready to learn about stop losses tonight. But here's the one thing I will say before I dip out of here tonight. When the stock market is finally gonna, are we done selling? Are we not done selling? On the macro point, it really doesn't matter, because 5-10 years from now, you're not even going to remember today's stock prices. But what I will say, one, it really comes down to, in the short term, what we're really looking at is what the inflation numbers are going to look at, or what the inflation numbers, are going to look like. And we're going to find that information out Wednesday, and we're either going to go a little bit lower or we're going to start to rally from here. But I think in the big picture, none of that really matters, because the stock prices you see today are going to be completely irrelevant to the stock prices you see 5-10 years from now. And then the second thing I would say is, pulling the trigger and buying the dips. I absolutely encourage it for everyone, and I'm all about that life because I am a long-term investor. But I would say some of you guys really need to start, I'm not saying start taking the safe approach and start doing safe investments like charging stations that are a little bit less volatile than some of the other stocks I own. But the reason I would say, start being, very, very like just diligent and very careful with your money, regardless if you're investing it or not, is because in the next 30, 60, 90 days, you're going to start to see layoffs across the country. And when this happens, some of you are going to start to get really fucking tight for money if you're the ones that end up losing your jobs or getting your hours cut back at work. And what I don't want you to do is buy a stock today just so you can sell it 2 weeks from now because something happened at work. So if you're going to invest, I don't mind you investing. Obviously, that's going to be the only way you make it out this fucking struggle. But maybe for the next 30, 60 days, I would probably start encouraging soldiers across the country and around the world, start loading up on a little bit more of the safe shit. Doesn't mean I don't love Bitcoin long term. Doesn't mean I don't love Tesla long term. Doesn't mean I don't love NEO long term. It just means I don't know how many of you are going to get impacted by these layoffs and these economic drawdowns. And I don't know how many of your family members are going to get impacted by layoffs and economic drawdowns. And so if and when you are one of the ones that get impacted and you get impacted deeply, I want you to be able to sell these safe investments at relatively almost the same price you bought them at. So that way you're not really having to sell for much of a loss or much of a gain. It's kind of like roughly the same price you're putting in today. And so that way, when you need that money, you're not like, oh, fuck, I bought that dip like 2 weeks ago. Now, my hours are getting cut back and now I need that cash. So I got to sell the stock, but now I got to sell the stock 30% lower because inflation kept going up. You see my point? So I guess right now what I would say is, for the next 30, 60, 90 days, until some of you guys, fully understand how much you guys are going to get impacted by this recession, if you want to start loading into some safer names, that's fine. And, that way, if you do end up having to sell, the stock's really not going to move too much up or down based on today's prices. But if you're just saying, fuck that shit, bro, this is my only way out, I got to pull the trigger, I got to load the cannons, I got to unload the AKs, I got to unload the Berettas, I got to load the Uzis, because right now this is the only way out, and I understand there's a risk there, but fuck it, this is my only way out, bro. If that's the mentality, if that's the mindset, if that's the feeling, if that's the mood, if that's the fucking intention, then by all means, ladies and gentlemen, you know what to motherfucking do. Ladies and gentlemen, this recession's not over. But our path to becoming multi-millionaires is far from over. Federal Reserve is going to do what they have to do to control inflation. The government's going to do what they have to do to get us out of this recession. But ultimately, you have to do what you have to do to make it to financial freedom and financial independence. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a motherfucking war zone. Some of you will make it. Some of you will not. Some of you will survive. Some of you can't. Some of you will become multi-millionaires 5 years from now. And some of you will still be broke as fuck. The decision is yours. The pain is real. The pain is coming. Only the real soldiers will survive the fucking battlefield. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the one, the only, the motherfucking general. Hamayon Entertainment! Maxed out VIP subscribers. I'll see you guys tonight. Bang, bang.
I was 5 and he was 6. We rode on horses made of sticks. He wore black and I wore white. He would always win the fight. Bang, bang, he shot me down. Bang, bang, I hit the ground. Bang, bang, that awful sound. Bang, bang, my baby shot me down. Seasons came and changed the time. When I grew up, I called him mine. He would always laugh and say, remember when we used to play? Bang, bang, I shot you down. Bang, bang, you hit the ground. Bang, bang, that awful sound. Bang, bang, I used to shoot you down. Music played and people sang. Just for me, the church bells rang. Now he's gone, I don't know why. And till this day, sometimes I cry. He didn't even say goodbye. He didn't take the time to lie. Bang, bang, he shot me down. Bang, bang, I hit the ground. Bang, bang, that awful sound. Bang, bang, my baby shot me down.